They didn't expect your calm. They expected collapse. They expected you to scream, explain yourself, prove your pain, beg for understanding. They expected desperation. Instead, you chose indifference. And that hit their ego harder than any reaction ever could. Because nothing wounds insecure people more than realizing they no longer matter. They thought the destruction would humble you into silence forever. They thought the loss, the betrayal, the pressure would reduce you to something small, hesitant, broken. They were ready to watch you fade. They were prepared for weakness. What they were not prepared for was composure. You didn't fall apart publicly. You didn't turn your suffering into a performance. You didn't ask for permission to heal. And that's where the fear started. They saw the damage. They knew how deep it went. They knew the hit you took wasn't light. It was personal, strategic, meant to end you. So in their mind, recovery was impossible. People don't come back from that. Not clean, not whole, not stronger. But you didn't just recover. You recalibrated. Instead of drowning in the wreckage, you studied it. You examined every crack, every failure, every betrayal like data. You didn't romanticize the pain. You extracted information from it. And slowly, quietly, you rebuilt yourself with intention. That's what unsettles them. Because most people survive by luck. You survived by design. You didn't become louder. You became sharper. You didn't become colder. You became controlled. You didn't seek revenge. You chose elevation. They were waiting for rage. What they got was restraint. They were waiting for chaos. What they saw was clarity. And clarity is terrifying to people who rely on confusion to stay relevant. You disappeared, not to escape, but to recalibrate. While they were watching for your reaction, you were upgrading your standards. While they expected emotional debt, you paid attention to emotional discipline. You learned when to speak. You learned when to stay silent. You learned when walking away is the most dominant move possible. Silence after betrayal isn't weakness, it's power. It means you're no longer reacting, you're choosing, and choice removes their leverage. They can't control someone who isn't emotionally dependent anymore. They can't manipulate someone who doesn't need validation, closure, or approval. That's why they feel uneasy around you now. You're no longer predictable. You don't argue. You don't explain. You don't chase. You observe. And people fear what they can't read. They expected pain to make you bitter. Instead, it made you precise. You don't waste energy anymore. You don't overextend compassion. You don't bleed for people who enjoy watching you suffer. You didn't become heartless. You became selective. That distinction matters. They wanted you fragile. What they created was awareness. They wanted scars. What you built was armor. Armor doesn't need to make noise. It doesn't need to. It simply absorbs impact. Now, when life hits you, you don't flinch. Problems that once shook your identity now barely register. You've already faced loss, rejection, betrayal, collapse. You've already survived the bottom, so threats don't work anymore. They have nothing left to hold over you, and that terrifies them. Because fear only works on people who still believe they have something to lose. You don't fear being alone. You've been there. You don't fear starting over. You've done it. You don't fear exposure. You know who you are. Once someone learns they can rebuild themselves from nothing, external control stops working. They expected you to return broken, asking for acceptance. Instead, you returned unavailable, not emotionally closed, just unavailable to disrespect, chaos, and manipulation. You learned boundaries the hard way, and boundaries make people uncomfortable because they expose who benefited from your lack of them. Now you see patterns early. You recognize masks instantly. You sense intentions before words arrive. Pain trained your intuition, and people who relied on your innocence don't know how to operate around your awareness. You don't accuse. You don't confront unnecessarily. You simply adjust access, and that silent adjustment feels like rejection to those who were used to overstepping. They hate that they can't provoke you anymore. They test you with silence, with shade, with indirect attacks. Nothing lands. You don't react because you don't need to. You're not numb, you're regulated. There's a difference. They assumed your kindness was weakness. They didn't realize kindness becomes lethal once it's backed by self-respect. You still care, but only where it's earned. You still help, but never at your own expense. You stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. That shift alone changes everything. Now they're confused. Now they're uncomfortable. Now they're watching. Because your growth didn't follow their script. You were supposed to be the lesson, the warning, the example of what happens when someone fails. Instead, you became proof that pain doesn't decide outcomes. Mindset does. You didn't broadcast your healing. You didn't narrate your comeback. You let results speak. And nothing intimidates fragile egos more than quiet progress. When someone heals loudly, people can dismiss it. When someone heals silently, people start asking dangerous questions. What else are they capable of? What did they learn that I didn't? What do they see now? They feel exposed standing next to your composure, because your calm forces comparison, and comparison reveals insecurity. You didn't just outgrow the conflict, you outgrew the need to win it. While they stayed stuck replaying the same narratives, you moved forward without dragging the past behind you. That's not escape, that's dominance. You became self-directed, self-trusting, self-respecting. And once you stop outsourcing your worth, nobody can negotiate it anymore. They see it in the way you walk, in the way you pause before speaking, in the way you're no longer available on demand. There's no urgency in you now, no desperation, no fear of loss. You understand that anything can be rebuilt, including yourself. That realization makes you dangerous to systems built on dependency. They're scared because they didn't destroy you, they revealed you. The pressure didn't break you, it refined you. The betrayal didn't end you, it educated you. And now you carry a presence that doesn't need attention to be felt. Your strength isn't loud, it's grounded, measured, unshakable.
That's why they're uncomfortable, because what was meant to erase you became the very thing that solidified you, and they know it now. They didn't lose control because you fought back. They lost control because you no longer need them. And there's nothing more terrifying than someone who can stand alone, walk forward, and remain calm, knowing exactly who they are. That's the version of you they never planned for.